And so as I was on the airplane, I wrote a letter and read it before the Colorado Secular Conference, and I take this letter with me everywhere I go. And with your permission, I'd like to just read it for you tonight. It takes about 5 minutes. But it's the thought I want to leave you with today. And so if you'll indulge me, I'll just read it word for word, okay? It goes like this. You learn a lot about people when you declare that you're not going to live your life by their rules. And many in this room know well the consequences of doing something so shocking as to be an individual, a singular voice, an often inquisitive voice with its own tenor, its own style, its own song, its own message. Only raise your hand if you're comfortable, but how many of you have experienced a kind of personal or professional consequence for your non-belief? Okay. We live in a world where conformity is comfort, and we all know well how comfortable people can become. So many voices out there are merely an echo, a hand-me-down from a previous generation, and the generation before, and the generation before. Breaking that cycle is unthinkable. And why would they ever consider it, as the cloak they inherited feels so warm and safe? Everyone around them looks like them, walks like them, talks like them, everyone except for you. They not in agreement, you raise an eyebrow of doubt. They just know the answer. You just know the answer raises many more questions. They take security in staying on the narrow path. You take security in carving a path of your own. But this is not what was expected of you. They laid out the guidelines for what a proper person should do, and they would make sure you turned out right no matter what. So what happened? At this very moment, mothers and fathers carry embarrassment and shame that they failed as a parent because you left the straight and narrow. You were co-opted and corrupted because you rewrote the playbook in a language that they consider to be foreign, confusing, and ugly. You had two choices, right? You could either keep the peace and line up with the others, or you could walk at your own pace in your own direction for your own reasons and accept the consequences and rewards that come with being your own person. And the fallout for many of you has been significant. These days, when they look at you, they only see what they think you should have been, what you could have been, if only you'd done things their way. They speak the words of love, but just barely. Just barely, and by lacing it with distance and disdain, they cheapen the word. In fact, every time they look at you and say, I love you, you get this bitter taste like you've just been schmoozed by a politician whose only real concern is trying to change your vote. You know the feeling? Yeah, they love you, but the full package, the 100% love, the unfiltered love, well, that's kept on reserve until you straighten up, you fit in, you conform, and stop making waves. Not until you start acting normal. Well, for just a second, let's take a look at normal, shall we? Normal is a husband and wife married per the Bible, in a church and under God, condemning non-heterosexuals for ignoring and even desecrating the lawful and ordained marital union that they now enjoy after 2 divorces. It's a mother telling a daughter that sex is dirty and that her body is dirty, that sexual desire is harmful lust, and that she's cursed by the fall of Eve in the garden, a byproduct of sin designed to gain her worth from a future husband who, according to the book of Genesis, will rule over her. It's a teacher frightening a 6-year-old child with torture in a fiery hell, and a devil lurking in the shadows with designs on its very soul. It's refusing to purchase a new car without first test driving 15 vehicles from 6 different car lots, checking the vehicle history, the payments, the insurance, safety record, and rating and consumer reports, while accepting the Bible as absolute fact without even knowing who wrote the book of Genesis. It's a church communion ritual where the men, women, and children gather to symbolically eat flesh and drink blood. It's thanking God for food grown and prepared by human hands. It's giving God the glory for providing that new car that came with a 5-year payment book. It's praying for safety after buckling your seatbelt, locking your doors, and loading your handgun. It's praying for healing after you call 911. It's Sunday school songs, a Bible on the nightstand, a check in the offering plate, an evangelist on the television, a Jesus fish on your car, and a t-shirt that says, 7 days without Jesus makes 1 week. It's a prison disguised to look like a mansion. And you aren't going to live like that. And you've made that pledge. You've read the books and seen the history and learned the science and realized that the world was much, much grander than most people ever imagined. You finally found your own voice, and you're going to speak with it. You've had the epiphany that you don't owe it to the rest of the world to keep them happy. You owe it to you to create happiness for yourself. And even though wherever and whenever you can, you say the words and take the actions that build bridges and soften the sharp edges and demonstrate a love for people and a desire for a better world, you are not a sheep to be led, an echo to be repeated, a cautionary tale, a bad example, a pervert, a freak, shameful, broken, ugly. You're not ugly. You're beautiful. You have figured out what so many billions of others have missed, that this life is just too precious to spend in someone else's shadow, that by judging everyone and everything that's different, you only indict your own shallow heart and you cheat yourself out of amazing depth, breadth, color, culture, and humanity out there that's so much more wonderful than the tiny rooms people lock themselves into and the narrow tunnels they walk. That believing in things without evidence, faith, is not a virtue but something to be pitied. That sexuality isn't shameful but something to be celebrated. That the condemnation of what is wrong, even when it is called sacred, is an obligation of any moral creature. And that your hopes, dreams, desires, loves, pursuits, and passions belong to you and you alone. You've stepped out of the crowd to stand forward, to stand out, and to stand your ground. To know that even though you occupy a tiny speck, upon a tiny speck inside this vast universe, and even though you don't believe your Father's a divine king and your mission's written in a magic book and your home is in the heavens, your life is wonderful and amazing and precious and full of love and so much more satisfying. It's a life where every day brings a new opportunity to ask the ultimate question. Now, is that kind of life easy? No. Is it popular? Probably not. But be encouraged, my friends, because inside this 13.7 billion-year-old universe, there has never been anyone exactly like you, and there will never be again. And you're simply living a life that honestly reflects that fact. And while others laugh at you because you are different, you can laugh at them because they are all the same. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you.